Build a cult. Navigating World War III. How's your sex life? Those aren't Reddit threads. Those are real session titles from a private retreat. And the people in the room include a sitting U.S. Treasury Secretary, 2 U.S. senators, the top NATO commander in Europe, and some of the richest men alive. For 20 years, this group kept its very existence a secret. No website, no member list, nothing. And then the whole thing spilled, not from some genius hack, but because they left the entire member directory sitting right there in the code of their own website. Anyone who knew where to click could read it. A society built around secrecy, brought down by the digital version of leaving your front door wide open. Let's get into it. The group is called DIALOG. Founded in 2006 by Peter Thiel, the billionaire behind PayPal and the data company Palantir, along with a man named Auren Hoffman. Hold on to that second name. We're coming back to him because he's the part of this story nobody's talking about. DIALOG runs invitation-only retreats. 100+ powerful people, locked rooms, strictly off the record. There's a registration fee north of $16,000 just to walk in the door. The press calls it a tech Bilderberg, a stranger, more secretive cousin of Davos, that big annual gathering where the global elite rub shoulders. But Davos at least has a stage and cameras. DIALOG has neither. No speakers, no panels, just powerful people, in private, and a rule that nothing said inside ever leaves the room. Officially, it's a place to swap big ideas. We'll let you decide what it actually is. So who's in the room? The leak. First posted by a Swiss hacktivist who goes by Maya Arson Crime-U, then verified by Wired, names a sprawling cast. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, Senators Ted Cruz and Cory Booker, the top U.S. NATO commander in Europe, Elon Musk, Eric Schmidt, the former head of Google, Reid Hoffman, Jared Kushner, 6 different members of the so-called PayPal Mafia, a former Saudi intelligence chief, plus a long bench of famous writers and podcasters.
And here's the first thing almost everyone gets wrong about this.
People want it to be a tidy right-wing tech cabal. Look closer. Ted Cruz and Cory Booker, a Trump son-in-law, and progressive media voices, hard left and hard right, sitting on the exact same list, which is what makes the easy explanation fall apart. This isn't one political team. It's something else. And that something else is the whole mystery. Because here's what turns this from gossip into something heavier. It isn't the first time DIALOG has surfaced. Earlier in 2026, an old DIALOG invitation showed up somewhere nobody wanted to be associated with, inside the released Jeffrey Epstein files. A 2014 invite floating around in that world, pitching a plan to gather 150 people to change the world. Now, we need to be straight with you here because this is exactly where bad channels lie to you. An invitation appearing in Epstein's files is a documented connection. It is not proof that anyone did anything criminal. Whether Epstein even attended is still unclear. That line matters, and we're not going to blur it for views. But here's what it does tell you. This network has been quietly operating in those kinds of circles for over a decade. What leaked this week isn't some fresh, one-time event. It's a snapshot of a machine that's been humming along in the background for 20 years. Now, back to that co-founder, Auren Hoffman. Everyone's busy staring at Thiel. Hoffman is the name that should stop you cold. Before DIALOG, Hoffman built companies in the data business. One of them, called SafeGraph, did something specific. It harvested location data out of ordinary phone apps, weather apps, prayer apps, the stuff sitting on your home screen right now, and packaged up where people go. And in 2022, reporters at Vice put it to the test. For about $160, less than a nice dinner, they bought a week of SafeGraph's data covering Planned Parenthood clinics. It showed where visitors came from, how long they stayed, and where they went next. $160 to surveil some of the most private moments in a stranger's life. It got so ugly that one of SafeGraph's own investors sold off his entire stake in disgust and gave the money to Planned Parenthood. So sit with the irony for a second. One of the two men who built a society this obsessed with privacy made his fortune selling everybody else's. The surveillance guy, whose own members' phone numbers and home details just fell out of his website like loose change. The watchers watched. Okay, let's pump the brakes and be fair, because the loudest voices online are skipping this part. We don't actually know what every name on that list means. CrimeU, the researcher who found it, said plainly she can't tell who's a full member, who's just a guest, and who's only a name sitting in the code. Wired was careful about it too. Some entries came with full sign-up details, others are just names. So no, we're not going to stand here and tell you this is a secret council ruling the planet. That's the lazy version. What we'll tell you is what the documents actually show. And honestly, that's unsettling enough on its own. Because the real problem isn't the guest list. It's one small detail buried in the registration data that almost nobody is talking about. Of the 222 people signed up for this year's retreat in a hotel outside Dublin, Ireland, not a single one used a government email address. Think about who's on that list. A sitting Treasury Secretary, US Senators, a top NATO commander. Every one of them signed up with a personal or company account. Why does that matter? Here's why. A government email can be requested by the public, through records laws, through journalists, through basic oversight. That's the paper trail democracy runs on. A private Gmail? Untouchable. So when public officials gather in secret using personal accounts, they're meeting in a way that is, by design, invisible to the people they work for. That's not networking. That's a blind spot, deliberately built into the system, where the most powerful people in the country can talk with no record that the public can ever reach. And it hits different when you remember what the man at the center of it actually believes. Peter Thiel once wrote flatly that he no longer thinks freedom and democracy can coexist. Read that line again. Then look at who's sitting in his room. So what are they all actually discussing behind those locked doors? Going off the leaked agenda, building cults, surviving World War III, bringing back nuclear power. And people who've studied the materials keep noticing the same chilling thing. These don't read like conversations about how to stop a disaster. They read like conversations about how to come out on top after one. Remote land, private security, a future the rest of us never get a vote in. Now look, maybe it really is just rich people talking big over expensive dinners. Maybe it's nothing. Or maybe it's precisely what it looks like. But that was never the point. The point is that for 20 years, you weren't even allowed to know the room existed. That part isn't a theory. That part just leaked. If this is your kind of story, the money, the power, and the rooms you'll never be invited into, you know what to do.